So, let's talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a chiropractor, a best-selling author, and for millions of people, a spiritual guide. He's become this massive figure in the wellness world. But here's the thing. Depending on who you ask, he's either a total visionary who's unlocking the power of the human mind, or he's a really dangerous charlatan pushing pseudoscience. Today, we're going to try and figure out what's what.
For his followers, and there are millions of them, Dr. Joe he's basically a lifeline. They credit his work with helping them heal from anxiety, depression, even severe chronic illnesses. You go online and you see these testimonials just pouring in, people talking about these profound, life-changing experiences. For them, he's all about hope.
But then there's the other side of the coin. You've got critics and a growing number of ex-followers who tell a completely different, much darker story. They talk about a community that feels like a cult, where you can't ask questions, and a leader who they say is driven by ego. It's a really stark contrast.
And the stakes here are really, really high. We're talking about a huge global movement. His retreats, which can cost thousands of dollars, sell out in literally minutes. So what is the real story behind the Dr. Joe Dispenza phenomenon? Let's get into it. Okay, so first off, just how big is this guy's influence? Because we're not talking about some fringe character here. He is deeply, deeply woven into the fabric of modern wellness culture.
You've probably seen him, even if you don't recognize the name. He's all over TikTok. One report even said he has Andrew Tate levels of omnipresence on the app, which is just wild. He's been featured on huge platforms like Goop and some of the biggest podcasts out there.
And a huge part of his reach comes from his celebrity followers. I mean, you've got people like Maria Shriver, Russell Brand, Ana de Armas, all following his work. Maria Menounos even claimed his online course healed her anxiety in just 3 days. You can imagine an endorsement like that just launches your message into the stratosphere. So what is this message that has so many people hooked? To really get why he's so popular, you have to understand the incredibly powerful promise that's at the very core of everything he teaches. This quote from his book, "You Are the Placebo," man, it just says it all. The central idea is that you are not a victim of your own biology. He teaches that your thoughts, your consciousness, can actually directly change your physical body and your health. His entire philosophy is really built on a well-known, totally real medical phenomenon, the placebo effect, right? We know that in drug trials, some people get better from a simple sugar pill just because they believe it's real medicine. Dispenza's whole thing is about consciously taking control of that power. And he breaks it down into this 3-step framework. The idea is to basically become your own placebo. First, there's conditioning, where you teach your body to have a physical response to a new thought. Second is expectation, where you genuinely start to believe a new future is possible. And third is meaning, where you attach a really powerful emotion to that intention. Now, to back this all up, he uses a lot of scientific-sounding language, and he leans really hard on the field of epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is a real field of study. It's about how your behaviors and environment can change how your genes work. But he takes it a step further, claiming that your thoughts and feelings alone can turn healthy genes on and disease genes off. And you got to admit, it's an incredibly powerful message. But this is where things start to get complicated. When you start to pull back the curtain on the science and the scientist, a lot of questions pop up. So Dispenza is often called a researcher or a neuroscientist, but his actual degree is a doctor of chiropractic. His bio often mentions Rutgers, but he actually transferred to an alternative college that doesn't even give grades. And his postgrad training? Well, for years he was a teacher at Ramtha School of Enlightenment, a group that's been described as a cult. And this is probably the most jaw-dropping fact for his critics. In a career that spans almost 40 years, where he calls himself a researcher, an investigation found he's published only one peer-reviewed scientific article. Just one. Real scientists who've looked at his work point to a whole list of major red flags. They say he misuses complex terms like quantum physics just to sound credible. His so-called research is done on his own followers at his workshops with no control groups. And crucially, we never hear about the people it doesn't work for or who drops out. We only ever hear the success stories. Look, this isn't just some abstract academic debate. These teachings have a very real and sometimes a really devastating impact on people's lives. Dispenza himself makes these extraordinary claims about his events. He talks about healings on a biblical scale. He's not just positioning these as self-help workshops, he's framing them as sites of actual modern-day miracles. But then you read first-hand accounts from people who were there and you hear a very different story. One person on Reddit described trying to heal a young woman with stage 4 cancer.
The group was told they were sending her healing energy. They even had a group text to follow her progress. A few weeks later, they just got a text saying she had died.
And here's another story from a former follower who said the work was like a religion to her. She spent thousands of dollars, years of her life, meditating 3 times a day. She says she only got sicker and ended up with stage 4 cancer, paralysis in her leg, and is now in constant debilitating pain.
So, as you can probably guess, with these totally opposite outcomes, you have a deep and often really hostile divide online between the true believers and the skeptics.
If you dive into places like Reddit, you see this playing out constantly. Critics ask for scientific proof, and they're told their analytical mind is what's blocking their healing. They question his methods, and they're just told, hey, if you don't like it, just move on. But the most common defense you see again and again is this phrase: argue for your limitations and you get to keep them.
And that leads to what, for many critics, is the most dangerous part of this whole philosophy. Because if you believe your thoughts create your reality, well, what happens when you don't get better? The message, whether it's spoken or not, is that it's your fault. You just didn't believe hard enough. The blame falls right back on the person who is already sick and suffering.
So, it really all boils down to this fundamental tension, right at the very heart of the Joe Dispenza phenomena. It's like a battle between 2 incredibly powerful forces.
We know the placebo effect is a real thing. Belief can be an incredible tool for healing. There's no doubt about that. But when you wrap that hope in questionable science, sell it for thousands of dollars, and build a culture that can end up blaming sick people for their own suffering, have you crossed the line? Where does empowering hope end and harmful hype begin? That's really the central question in all of this.